Let's talk about a K-drama that's on everybody's radar right now, so to speak. Hospital Playlist, also known as 슬기로운 의사생활 in Korean. Hospital Playlist is currently my favorite show on Netflix at the moment, and I just wanted to talk about it because the season finale is fast approaching and I just have so many thoughts. I'm dying to just get into a conversation with other fans who are so invested in this show. And yeah, I just want to share my thoughts, some criticisms that I have, as well as observations about the show, and you can let me know if you agree or disagree. Just a heads up, this video will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen Hospital Playlist and you plan on watching it, then you probably want to hit pause on this video, binge the show, and then come back to this video. And it might take you a while because each episode is pretty long, but I promise you, you will not regret it. All right, let's talk about Hospital Playlist, shall we? Hospital Playlist is a show that follows the lives of 5 doctors who are working at the same hospital and have been really close friends since their med school years. Needless to say, friendship is a very important central theme in this show. When I found out that Shin Won-ho created this TV series, I was like, I gotta check it out because I'm a huge fan of PD Shin's previous works like Reply 1988, 1994, and 1997. I loved watching all 3 of those shows. And I will say that Reply 1988 is actually one TV series that inspired me to want to tell my own stories. So I was a big fan going into this show, and I was really excited to see what kind of story would unfold in this hospital setting. I'm really glad that in episode 1, they didn't make the inheritance thing a big part of the plot. It was simply a bit of exposition and a way to set up the premise for how these friends end up working at the same hospital. So I'm like kind of tired of the whole like, oh, who's gonna take over the father's role as CEO of this company or this hospital, whatever. So I'm really glad that they didn't actually make this like an actual important part of the story. Let me know if you agree in the comments. One thing that I like about the show is that you see like a pretty realistic depiction of the day-to-day lives of doctors and healthcare professionals working in a hospital. I'm not a doctor in Korea. I'm not a doctor, period. So I can't really speak to whether or not this show accurately portrays the everyday life of a doctor. But it seems pretty realistic, and you get to see like the never-ending grind and hustle, the types of patients that they see every day, and the different like challenging situations that they have to deal with. And really quickly, you see that these doctors, they can't bring their personal lives to work. They really have to make that clear separation. If not that, then at least you get a realistic portrayal of 5 really close friends. And in general, there are just so many relatable scenes and moments throughout this show that I feel like everyone can relate to, even if you're not a doctor. One example that comes to mind is when the resident of the OB-GYN wing of the hospital, the one who has a crush on Seok-hyung's character, when she's like being overworked and she's feeling so burned out and underappreciated, she's busting her ass while this other colleague of hers is sort of just gliding by and not doing a lot of work, but getting compliments, getting praise, just not suffering the consequences that she has to experience. And I feel like that is so relatable. I think that anyone who constantly works overtime can relate to this feeling and just being like, I'm gonna quit tomorrow, I'm gonna quit my job, I'm not gonna be a doctor anymore, like I'm not gonna do this anymore, whatever your occupation is. And I've definitely been through that, and I have those days myself, and so I thought that was really relatable. This show in general just has a lot of those moments where you're like, oh, I can really put myself in the shoes of this character. You also see a lot of like banter and bickering between the friends, the main characters, and their family members, and I think that is also very realistic of what families and friends are like in real life. I do have a few gripes about this show. And I think sometimes, although for the most part, I don't mind the pacing of the show at all, I think there were a couple scenes that dragged a little at times. For example, do you remember the mafia scene between Jung-won and his mom and the mom's childhood friend / chairman of the hospital or whatever his role is? I felt like the mafia scene was endearing, it was sweet, but it was like way too long. It didn't have to be that long. And like once in a while you'll see those scenes and I'm just kind of like, this could have been cut out. The episode is over an hour, which is long enough already. So I do think certain scenes could be shortened, or edited out, but that's just my opinion. Another thing that I want to point out is the lack of tension on this show. So let me rephrase that. There is tension in every episode, not a lot of it, and I'm fine with that because real life can be pretty mundane sometimes, and like we're not all going through a lot of like big ordeals. But that being said, this is a TV show, and I feel like anytime there's an issue or an obstacle, like everything ends up conveniently just working out for the most part. And that's great because I'm all for happy endings and stuff. But I don't know, sometimes I feel like that part is a little unrealistic. Like, oh, maybe that was a little too easy, Another thing I noticed is that for every ambiguous scene or subplot, they always show the backstory much later on. And the one issue that I have with that is sometimes we get the backstory, in my opinion, a little too late, to the point where you're just like, there's just not a lot of payoff, or you just don't really care anymore at that point. For example, in the beginning, we don't know as much about Seok-hyung's character as we do the other friends in the group, and we get a sense that he's a mama's boy, right? And that kind of makes his character a little less sympathetic to me. And I was like, okay, well, maybe there's a reason for this. Maybe there's more to his story, and I just need to keep watching. And you do find out that, his mom, her husband cheated on her, and she also had like a stroke at some point or something like that, and so he is extra careful ever since that incident, and he is super protective of his mother, and you realize why he is so close to her. But I feel like you don't really find that part out soon enough, and like at that point I was just like, well, he's kind of become the least sympathetic character because I'm already attached to the other friends and their storyline. I felt like the pacing with his story development was a little too late compared to the others. All to say, this show is definitely more character driven than it is plot driven, and I love that. I really like the characters. I think they're very well fleshed out. And that brings me to my next talking point. This is where the show really shines. You see a lot of interactions between the hospital staff, the main group of friends and their families, and my favorite relationship is definitely the relationship between each of the 5 friends and how they interact with each other. I also really like the father-son relationship that you get to see here and there between Ik-jun and his son Uju. I don't know. Uju is so adorable. Before I delve into what makes this show so great, I have a few other criticisms that I do want to bring to light and see if you agree. So I would say that in episode 1, there were just so many characters that I had trouble following, and I'm on episode 10 right now, which is pretty far along, and there are only 12 episodes in season 1, apparently. But sometimes I still have trouble remembering who's who and putting like a face to the name that is being brought up in conversation. Again, I will say that the one main character that I feel least attached to is Seok-hyung, because his character is not as fleshed out or as interesting as the others in the friend group. Because I feel like each friend has a very distinct personality, but to me, his role in the friend group just doesn't really stand out, and I'm not really quite sure if he needs to even be there. But I don't know. Kim dae-myung as an actor is kind of being underutilized in a way, and I've seen him in Bisang, and I was like really attached to his character in that show. There's also one relationship that I would like to see being developed a bit more. And that is the relationship between Gyeo-wool and An Jung-won. Like, I still don't really get why they are being like put together. Not saying that I have anything against, you know, these two characters. I really like An Jung-won's character, and I might be biased because I'm a fan of Yoo Yeon-seok. I really want to root for these two, but I feel like from an audience's point of view, their relationship just hasn't been fleshed out enough to justify their feelings for each other. Like, you see that, you know, supposedly Jung-won, he likes Gyeo-wool, but he's just like repressing his feelings, and Gyeo-wool has a crush on him, but like I just haven't seen enough interactions between them to understand why they like each other. Maybe there was something more that happened between them behind the scenes, but the drama doesn't really show that. So I personally wish I could have seen more interactions between these two characters so that I understand why they should be together, which is the direction that I think this show is heading in. So maybe I'm in the minority, but this is my hot take. I don't think that Jang Gyeo-wool and An Jung-won should end up together just because it doesn't make sense to me plot-wise. Let me know if you agree, but I feel like the casting was just so spot on. Going in, I was already familiar with the male actors playing the main characters, but I actually didn't know the actress playing Song-ha. I've heard that she's like this really big musical star and that this was like her debut role in television. But I think Jeonmi-do, she just does like a really fantastic job with her character. The acting in general is just phenomenal, and even the side characters who aren't super important but do crop up a lot throughout the show, I think they do such an amazing job. Two people come to mind in particular for me, and the first side character is again the resident who has a crush on Seok-hyung. She's the one who's always like trying on like different looks and like playing with makeup. I think that she is so endearing and her character is just really relatable. I was really surprised by her. I've never seen her before in anything else. Yeah, I think the actress is just like really good at playing her in a memorable way. The second side character that I really like is Jun-hwan's girlfriend, who is also Ik-jun's younger sister. The actress playing her has such great like comedic timing, and so yeah, I don't know who she is, but like I'm excited to see like what else she does after Hospital Playlist. The writer is just such a genius. I think the dialogue, the banter between some of the characters really gives the show a lot of heart. And yeah, I'm just such a fan. It's very reminiscent of like Reply 1988. If we're predicting what will happen based on PD Shin's previous shows, I feel like Song-ha will end up with Ik-jun and not An Ji-hong. I think it's because like if you've seen all of the Reply Answer Me series, the girl character always ends up with whoever she has the most history with. And so it only makes sense here, if we're following suit, that Ik-jun and Song-ha end up together because they have been friends for a really long time and they get each other. So it just makes sense that they end up together. I'm also a huge fan of all the cameo appearances that have cropped up in this show. A lot of Easter eggs and just so many great moments. So yeah, for fans of Shin Won-ho's previous works, like this is just a great show, and it just has a lot of those moments that only fans will know and care about. All in all, I love Hospital Playlist. I've been thoroughly enjoying this series. I think what I like about it is that it's centered on the relationships more than the actual hospital drama. And I think Hospital Playlist is a type of show that I would want to introduce to friends who aren't familiar with K-dramas. I feel like there's a stereotype that K-dramas are super over the top and they're very much like soap operas, which I don't find any issue with. It's just that I think it becomes problematic when K-dramas are kind of like grouped as this one singular genre of TV. But the soapy type of genre is not the only type of K-drama that exists. You know, there are just so many other types of shows on TV right now in Korea. There's so much great content that I would want to introduce this show just to get people to be more open-minded about K-dramas and just understand that like there's like a world of content to devour, and don't box in K-dramas as this one thing. Anyway, back to Hospital Playlist. This show is just so heartwarming, touching, even though sometimes there are like heavy scenes, heavy topics that are covered. I never feel depressed or discouraged after watching an episode of Hospital Playlist. In fact, I think I leave feeling more human. And you know a show is good when you just want to talk about it so badly that you end up making a video about it. If you're not into slice of life storytelling, then this show is probably not going to be for you. But fortunately for me, super slice of life TV shows and films with a little bit of comedy and heartfelt moments sprinkled throughout, that type of show is actually my favorite kind of storytelling. So let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with some of the things that I talked about today in this video. I can't wait to see how they wrap up season 1. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to, please subscribe. Okay, bye.